The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. So thrilled to be with you here today. I wasn't able to be with you here yesterday because we were filming some exciting stuff to show you on another day. We'll leave it mysterious. It's the week before Halloween, so we get to be mysterious, right? But we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours to finish out this wonderful week. And we're going to be talking about topics having to do with autism and how you and I can be more efficient, more effective, working with our children on the autism spectrum, helping them to reach their fullest potential. Whether you're a parent, teacher, or practitioner, I know that that's something that's important to you. I for sure know it's something that's important to me, and I love being able to talk with you guys about it. I want to remind all of you that this show is meant to be interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you want to talk about, how you want to talk about it, how we can better serve you. So many people helped me along the way to help my child, and I'm here to be the conduit. I am by no means an expert. Not an expert in autism, not an expert in ABA, which we talk about a lot here, but it's a subject that I'm really passionate about. My child, as you know, if you watch the show, was diagnosed at 2.5. He's 9 now, and I have a lot, you know what they say about paying it forward? I have a lot to pay forward. I'm just working off that debt, being here, and if I can save you 5 minutes and $5 hooking you up with information, then my day is complete. That's what I'm here for. I hope you'll interact. There's lots of ways to interact. We're going to cycle through on the screen some of the different ways that you can interact with us, that you can write to us, and also that you can view the show. But I want to remind you that if you want to watch the live show and interact in a live way, you have the option of going to www.autism-live.com. We are live Monday through Friday, unless there's an interruption for some reason, at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 1 to 3 Eastern Time, 10 to noon Pacific Time. If you go to autism-live.com, you'll see a box there. All you have to do is put your cursor there and write and hit enter. You don't have to do anything else. There's no login. There's no credit card. We don't even get to know your name. You just get to tell us what you want to talk about, and I love that. And it's a great way for you to interact, to ask our guests questions, and to ask questions, suggest topics for things that happened before or that are going to come somewhere down the road. So please take the time to interact with us. It makes our day, and hopefully we can be of some help to you. That's really why we're here. All right. We like to start every morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is where we take on one word, one phrase, one anagram, and try to figure out just what in the hey nani nani does it mean, and hopefully to link it up to circumstances where it's going to be helpful and useful to our child's progress. We're all about progress. So we've actually did these terms very recently, but it was important to go back over them this week because we were talking about Ann Coulter and her really inappropriate comment on Twitter the other day. If you missed when Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson was with us on Wednesday and we talked about it, you can find it on our Facebook page. We did a clip that said, just say no to Ann Coulter. Check it out if you would. But we were talking about putting her behavior on extinction. You know, there are some times when somebody is doing something, and it's not just our kids with autism, people engage in challenging behavior from time to time. And we gave you the definition of extinction, but it is unconscionable to me as a parent to give you a definition of extinction without telling you what an extinction burst is. So, that is our phrase for today, an extinction burst. So we talked about extinction the other day. If you missed that, extinction is when you try to cut the behavior off from the thing that's reinforcing to it. So it's important that we talk about what the extinction burst is. Let's look at what the actual definition of an extinction burst is. An increase in the frequency of responding when an extinction procedure is initially implemented. Okay, let's look at our working definition. A temporary spike or increase in the problem behavior that occurs when the behavior's source of reinforcement is initially removed or discontinued, i.e. the behavior gets worse before it gets better. All right, so let's put this in the context of Ann Coulter, shall we? Because that I want to put her behavior on extinction. Ann Coulter frequently engages in inappropriate behavior by saying things that are wildly offensive, in my opinion, but not just mine, in a lot of people's opinions. And so we saw on Tuesday that Ann had tweeted something really wildly inappropriate. I don't want to give more fodder to it, so if you want to know what it is, go and Google it to see Ann Coulter tweet, and you'll see. But in any case, and I was making the argument that we should put this behavior on extinction, correct? That we no longer, that it was clear to me, Ann Coulter has a book that she wants to promote, and it was clear to me that she was looking to create a stir and have her tweet trend, and that it seemed like the most responsible thing that we could do is, as parents of children of special needs, is to not give it the attention, right? That we, and remember, when we talk about extinction, we're looking at what the function of the behavior is and just cutting off the payoff for that particular behavior. So I'm not talking about ignoring Ann Coulter, right? Ann Coulter's a human being. That would be inappropriate. But when she engages in these challenging behaviors, we don't give her what she wanted for it. What she wanted was attention for it in the form of us. She really wanted something tangible. She wanted us to buy her book and talk about her in a way that would give her more attention. I know I'm slightly breaking the rule here, talking about it now, but she's not watching us. Let's be honest, right? So this is like a clinic where we're talking about it in another room from the child. We can discuss it. She's not paying any attention. And if I thought for a second she was, then this would not be the proper way of dealing with it, right? But she's not. She's not going to look at us, clearly. So in any case, we set up the extinction where we say, here's the behavior. What the paycheck for this behavior is this exact thing, and we're not going to give the paycheck. That's extinction, right? And unfortunately, what happens sometimes, a lot of times when we start an extinction procedure, there's an extinction burst, where if somebody has been used to doing something and getting something for it, right? And this is true of all of us, not just Ann Coulter, not just our kids on the spectrum. If we're used to doing something and getting the response that is the paycheck, and suddenly the paycheck isn't there, we will try to do something else immediately, but a lot of times we will revert back to the behavior that we were doing and we'll up the ante. We'll try that much harder to get it done. I always use the example of me with the light switch in my bathroom. Every time I go in and turn the light switch on, light floods the room, and I got my reinforcement for the behavior, right? Except that the light blew out. And it was one of those lights you just can't change a light bulb. Nonsense, right? And we had other things to do, so we weren't getting the light fixed. And so I would go in and I would turn the light switch expecting for the light to come on, right? And eventually I got to the point where I no longer turned the light switch on because I wasn't getting the paycheck for it, right? But first, I went through a short period of time, even though I am a on certain days, intelligent woman, I went in and turned the light switch on and it didn't work. And even though I knew why it didn't work, I engaged in behavior where I went like this to the light switch because something was going to happen. It's like I didn't have control. It was just, human behavior. We've all done that, right? Well, our kids will do that too. If we take away the paycheck for the behavior, if your child is used to screaming and throwing themselves on the floor to get a cookie, and suddenly we say we're not going to give the cookie, for this behavior. And the child the first time is like, what's going, who changed the rules here, right? And they'll try something else because they want the cookie, right? But you may see that later on that afternoon or the next day that the child will throw the mother of all hissies, hoping that they're going to get the cookie because they're saying, oh, maybe I just didn't do it enough, right? So my feeling was on Wednesday when we were talking about Ann Coulter, that Ann Coulter had engaged in this behavior, we wanted to put it on extinction. Somebody told me that Ann Coulter had actually used the same phrase, tweeted it the week before, so that this wasn't the first time, and we know she says inappropriate things, but she'd used the same phrase the week before. So, and nobody paid attention. It didn't make a big deal. And so I think actually what we saw on Tuesday was an extinction burst from Miss Coulter. I hope so, because you know what happens after an extinction burst? If we hold the line and say, not giving it attention, you know what happens? The behavior goes away. I stopped flicking the light switch because it wasn't working. This didn't get it done. This didn't get it done. So eventually I gave up. I'm literally, now that the light is fixed, I'm having to retrain myself that I stand in the bathroom all the time in the dark and forget that I could turn on the light. It won't take me long, and I will get used to turning on the light again. But as parents of kids on the spectrum, we need to know when people are talking about extinction that we're not ignoring our children at all. That is not what it is. We're ignoring a specific behavior because it has been found, the function of the behavior has been found, and we're removing the reward. Why it functioned, we're like breaking that chain. So we're not giving it that reward anymore. But we have to have an understanding and expectation that the child, and I have to say, it's normal behavior, and it's actually, when you think about it, there's a measure of perseverance in it. Take some solace in it. It looks horrible, and it wrecks your day when your child is in the middle of an extinction burst because it's the worst of their behavior. The worst behavior, right? But I like to remind myself now, having known this for a couple of years, this is the extinction burst. I just have to wait it out through this for a very short period of time, and then my life is gonna be better. And you also remind yourself, there's the extinction burst. That means we got the function right. That means the intervention is right, and it's about to kick in and start working. Woohoo! And not get caught up in the, I cannot believe that my child is turned into whatever the behavior is. Because it can get ugly, right? It can get ugly. Extinction bursts are not fun in the moment, but remind yourself in the back of your head, this is about to end, and I won't have to deal with this behavior anymore. I just have to remember my job here, which is to not give it the paycheck. Extinction bursts, it's the worst, but it's about to be the best, right? Okay, so that is our jargon for the day. We always have a question for you. Today is no exception. Oopsie. I can't get my program. There we go. Our question of the day today is, how does your child show you they're feeling anxious? What is it that's the tell, if you will? Do they do something where you see that the anxiety is starting to ratchet up? Do they have the way of signing or pointing to something, or are they able to tell you? I have to be honest with you, this is a really great thing to talk about, because we can get to a point where the child is self-aware enough that they can tell us. We should shoot for that. But how many years does that take? Think about for yourself. Are you able, at this moment in time, when you start to feel anxiety in the beginning stages, are you able to call it what it is? This is something that I'm working on in my life, and I have to be honest that it takes a certain level. Like, I can just be feeling uncomfortable, and not really know what it is, and then it has to get to a certain level before I go, oh, look at that. I'm having some anxiety. What's that about, right? That's taken how many years? Whoo. many years. So giving our kids a break and saying that our expectation is not that a 7-year-old is going to be able to say, Mom, I'm having some free-floating anxiety, right? But there are things that we can tune into as parents and as teachers and as practitioners where we can see the beginning stages physically. So what does your child do? How do they show you that they're starting to feel anxiety? My son, who's really right now very much afraid of heights, and I'm afraid of heights too, but he is more afraid of heights than I am right now. But it's very interesting to me because if we'll be on an open staircase, they just opened a new library close to us, and we went to the open house for it, and they have this gorgeous, and it looks like a craftsman building, and the second floor, I mean, the ceilings are really high on the first floor. So the staircase is very steep and it's wide, but it's all open, and the railing is this glass sheer thing. It's beautiful, right? But for somebody who is a little concerned about heights, it's a little intimidating. And I didn't even notice in my behavior that I started walking up the stairs and I was sticking close to the wall. Didn't even notice that I was doing that. But what I noticed was my child pushing against me, that he had me like practically going into the wall, and I was going, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? And then I realized, I know exactly what's going on. But sometimes it takes that he'll physically paint himself onto my side and be pushing me someplace. And that's when I notice. And we generally stop, we make an accommodation, and we talk about it. And I, was saying to him, okay, are you feeling a little anxious because of the staircase? Yeah. Right? And I said, okay, well, what shall we do about it? Because we're not going to stay downstairs, right? We're going to go upstairs. So what can you do? We switched sides. And so he stood on the other side. Eventually, the more we work on it, I'll have him walk up the middle of this particular staircase when we go to this library, but I'm not going to push it, right? Slowly, but surely. But we talked about it, and I said, wow, so you're feeling some anxiety about that. Where are you feeling it? You feeling it in your tummy? What's going on? We language through the whole thing, and I said, have you ever fallen over a railing on a staircase? No. I said, okay, could you? Yeah, you could. That's why you're feeling a little anxious, but you're not going to, because you're a big boy now. You're not a little boy. There's no way. Nobody's going to push you over the staircase. Look at how high that glass is. I know you can see through it, but it would take, somebody would have to pick you up and throw you over it. And is anybody going to pick you up and throw you over it while I'm standing here? I don't think so. Right? So by the time we talked through all this, we were up the staircase. And we walked down a little bit further away from the wall. We do these things in baby steps. But I'm curious from you guys, what do you see? What do you notice? What does it take for you to notice that your child is feeling some anxiety? Because the tell, when we get to the point where we can see the tell earlier, we can catch it earlier. Because it's easier to deal with anxiety at a 2 than it is to deal with anxiety at a 6. And it's easier to deal with 6 than it is at a 10. And we don't want to get above 10 on a scale of anxious, right? We don't want to do what's the movie where they say we've turned it up to Spinal Tap. We've turned it up to 11. Well, it only goes up to 10, but yes, we're turning it up to 11. We don't want our anxiety to go there. So write into us on Facebook, write into us on Twitter. You can write in the forum. How do you know when your child's feeling anxiety? All right, we always have a topic of the week, and of course, you guys know our topic of the week is anxiety. Hopefully it's not high anxiety, but if we don't regularly take care, we can get anxiety for ourselves and for our kids to a place where it's not productive. So we've been talking about that all week. We're going to continue to talk about it today. We've got some really exciting things in addition going on today. In just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by a guest, Mike Hipple. This is a young man who uses assisted technology to speak. And while he is not on the autism spectrum, he has been asking us for a while if he could talk to us about things that he knows, because he uses assistive technology to speak, that may help us to be able to understand and communicate and help our children to be able to communicate with assistive technology in a way that we may not have thought of. So we're thrilled to have Michael with us this morning, Mike, excuse me. And then a little bit later on today, we are going to be joined via phone by a mom, Tabitha, who will be talking to us. You know, the FDA has approved this cord blood study, and we're going to be talking more about that with Tabitha, and all will become clear when we talk to her. I might as well tell you, we don't need to be that mysterious, that her child has actually gone this type of experimental treatment. Really important that we note that scientifically there is nothing on board at this moment in time that tells us what we can expect. So this is an experimental, been approved by the FDA, but we do not have the science yet, and we're going to be talking about that with Tabitha, about her child and what it was like, so that we have a form of reference. And then we are hoping to get to our executive functions tip today. I know that on Friday it is normal that we have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox coming in and talking about research. Unfortunately, he is unable to join us this week. I know it's a bummer, and we just found out about it yesterday, and we weren't doing a live show yesterday to talk about it, but we will have him back next week, and that will give us a little time today to talk about Conan O'Brien and him turning himself spray tan deep and cornrows last night. I hope you saw it. We aren't going to show a clip from it, and we'll tell you about why, but we love Conan. Don't we love Conan? I have such I've always loved Conan, let's say that. But I love the fact that he put up, and that he put up even more. You know what I mean by that? That he said, this is what I'm willing to do. And I'm willing to be in a deep, dark spray tan, and I'm willing to put my hair in cornrows. And he looked ridiculous last night, did he not? But bless his heart, he had a good time. You gotta love a man who's willing to make a fool of himself, and especially when he's willing to make a fool of himself to raise money for autism. So we're sending lots of hugs to Conan, and we'll talk more about that and our journey with the Conan clips that has all ended so happily. Again, we love Conan, and we love Conan's people, by the way. But we'll talk more about that because we have time. We're going to take a break, and we're going to connect with Mike Hipple, who will be talking to us through his assistive technology. Stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age, which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, You are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your students' assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are three main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provide you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community, where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We have a very special guest that's going to be joining us via Skype. His name is Mike Hipple, and he is a young man. I mentioned this before the break, that he does not have an autism spectrum disorder, but he communicates through assisted technology. So Mike is going to be joining us. His mom, Sue Hipple, is with him as well. And we want to start out by asking, Sue, do we have your permission, because Mike is not yet 18, do we have your permission to be talking to you and Mike on camera?
Yes, you do. We're very happy to be with you today.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Mike has been a regular viewer of our show, and we have been able to interact with him. He sends us questions from time to time and comments that are really important. And I know it was really important to Mike. He wanted to share with us some information because being someone who uses this assisted technology, he wanted to share with us some things that might help us in communicating with our children, especially when they use assisted technology. And Mike has a prepared speech that he has typed into his technology, and he's going to read it for us right now. So go ahead, Mike.
Good morning or good afternoon. First off, I have this in a notebook on my Echo, so please wait to ask any questions until I am all done. Echo is my communication device, talk made by PRC. I want to tell you now quickly about myself. My name is Mike Hipple. I don't have autism myself, but I have CP, so I can understand how hard it is working with the IEP team. My team is awesome. They will do anything to help me. My two greatest IEP coordinators and my two greatest aides in my education are Mrs. Kramer and Mrs. B through kindergarten to 6th grade. Mrs. Aide started with me in 7th grade to now, and Mrs. Larson started working with me in 9th grade as my math teacher, and she started as my IEP coordinator in 10th grade. All four people are my dear friends to me and my family members. Now, I would like to talk about how communication device is our friend. I was not a good boy when I was younger, but when I got my first PRC communication device, my behaviors stopped little by little, but I still do dumb things, like everyone else in the world. My life changed for the better when I got a way to tell my parents, my teachers, and my aide what I was feeling for the first time. I didn't need to act out to get what I wanted. I I feel a communication device is the key for people who can't speak. That is why I am mentoring younger AAC users. With the internet, I can be a mentor to a child who is living anywhere. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, first of all, Mike, I just want to say again how much we've enjoyed conversing with you on Autism Live, how much you've added, and I love your passion for this subject and that you want to be helpful. You are a remarkable young man, and you know, when you say I was not a very good boy, I just want to scream and say I know that not to be true. And I love how you said afterwards that how difficult and how frustrating it was, but that these devices help you to communicate, and you are a remarkable young man. We'll need to be able to tell people how you can be a mentor, but I know it takes a while for you to be able to converse back with us on the device, but I really want to just say to you how proud I am of you, and I'm guessing that your mother is a little proud of you as well.
We're very proud of him. Mike mentors 3 kids right here in our school district who use devices. And I just wish he would have had something like that when he was little. I think we would have turned him around a little quicker.
Well, and also, Mom, you were saying before the break that we know that Mike watches the show because we get to talk with him from time to time. And we were having a little conversation about the fact that ABA and the principles of ABA are really effective for everyone. And you were saying that the information that you see us providing is for more than just autism. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but so you guys feel like this might have helped you if you'd been able to watch the show earlier?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of what you say really resonates to children with any disability, especially your IEP suggestions. And I think it would have been helpful for me to hear something like that earlier in Mike's education career. We're pretty lucky. You know, we've had an awesome team working with him. We've had people that have been with him since he's been in kindergarten. I don't know if that's common or if that's pretty rare. The assistive technology person, Jen, is awesome, and she's been with us since kindergarten. And just the information that you provide is a real public service, no matter what disability your child has.
Wow. Thank you. So, Mike, I do have a couple of questions for you. Do you still have regular IEPs?
Yeah.
Yes. And so, do you attend your IEPs, or does your mom attend for you? Is it you that goes?
I go with him, but Mike's been attending his own IEP since he's been in 5th grade.
And so this question is for both of you then. Do they give him a forum in the IEPs to be able to speak and say what he agrees to and what he doesn't agree to?
Yeah, actually, the IEP starts out with Mike introducing new members to the existing team, and you probably picked this up already. He's got a pretty good sense of humor.
Yes.
So he really gets a jab in there on something especially close to, and makes everybody laugh.
Wow. And so, Mike, are you a senior this year, or are you?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And do you guys have a plan for what you're going to do next year, Mike? Are you looking towards college, or what are you looking towards?
We know we have an opportunity to go to school until he's 21, but that's never been Mike's goal. We kind of want to move on to the next chapter next year.
Okay.
We've been doing some community service, volunteer work, community education, and hope to get him involved in a class or 2 at a community college.
Well, he's pretty awesome at computer. I mean, we see that I'm wondering, we're always looking for interns for social marketing. I don't know if that's something that might interest you, Mike.
Yeah, you piqued his interest.
Well, maybe that's something that we could talk about a little bit afterwards, because we could use some social marketing interns, and clearly, Mike, you're very good at the computer.
Yeah, and just for your audience to know how Mike accesses his device, his head array moves a cursor around.
Uh-huh.
It's the last one for me.
Yep, we have our last IEP in January.
Okay.
So the cursor goes up, down, right, left, and then select. And usually when we go to conferences, it's kind of a unique way to access the system, and it's worked real swell for Mike.
So is it like a joystick? What is he? Explain to me, Sue.
The head array has different spots on the head array, and it moves
okay.
the cursor around on his computer, and then he selects the different letters to spell out words, or he has the MinSpeak PRC communication system, so it's like picture symbols that mean a phrase.
Wow. Well, Mike, you're incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I'm so thrilled that we've had an opportunity to have you here on the show. And I'd like to have you on the show again. And I want to talk to you about maybe maybe you might be interested in an internship. But, no pressure. But I thank you, Mike, for being with us, and Sue, I thank you for being with us. And if we have questions that parents have about using assisted technology, can we forward some of them to the two of you?
Yeah.
We'd be happy to.
Okay. Mike, thank you so much. And thank you, Sue, for being here as well. And we'll stay in touch. How's that?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What a remarkable young man and a remarkable mom. And Mike has written to us on many occasions and said, this is a subject that I feel really passionate about using assisted technology and as early as possible, and that he really wants to be a voice, and I mean that in the way that it sounds, a voice that helps us help our children. How remarkable is that? How remarkable is that? So we'll keep in touch with Mike, and we'll keep in touch with you. We're going to pause, take a break, and we'll be back. You guys have written in a bunch of things, and we want to start to deal with that and hopefully get to some of your answers when we come back. Stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services. We've seen her wake up.
It just has some gases.
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and you guys have written in some things on the live forum. If you watch us on autism-live.com, there's a box. It says Shannon is answering right now. You can type in there when we're live and hit enter, and it automatically shows up here on the screen. If it says rebroadcast, then there are lots of other ways to get in touch with us. You can email us, Facebook us, all different kinds of ways, and we take questions in whatever way you guys send them. But this is immediate gratification when you're watching us live. So you should be seeing on your screen right now, somebody wrote in and said, isn't it shocking to see behaviors in your child that you are not familiar with that have become habits for your child at school? At school, my child always covers his mouth with his hands when he talks. He doesn't do that at home. It is shocking, isn't it? First of all, I think just seeing behaviors in your child, sometimes they're shocking, right? So sometimes there's behavior you go, what on earth is that? I also think, too, my son, when he was little, he would sleep on his side, and he would turn his hand in this very weird position, and I have never seen anyone in my life do that except for my father. And my father has not been with us for, 18 years now, and so to see my child do that, can I just tell you how weird and bizarre that was, and how much I cried, because certainly nobody taught him how to sleep that way, and I've never seen anyone ever this very weird position with his hand palm down, face up, with the arm, and a very only ever seen my father do that. But yeah, this being at school and putting the hand in front of the mouth, it really, of course, I have questions about why, what's the function of that, what started that, and what you're doing about that, because I would think that that would not be beneficial to talk with your hand in front of your mouth. And I'm wondering, what are they doing about that at school? And how long your child's been going to school. Like, when did you see, I have all these questions. It's the wannabe therapist in me. What was the antecedent? What happened that this, and obviously there's some sort of, it's a habit now, but there's got to be something about it that seems reinforcing to the child because it keeps happening, right? Sometimes when a habit happens, we'll keep, doing something even after the paycheck isn't coming on a regular basis because we're used to it and it got reinforced at one time. In fact, that's what we try to do with our kids all the time. We teach them a new skill, and in the beginning we heap it with reinforcement, and then we gradually taper it off, and we want to see that behavior maintained, right? Well, sometimes that can happen with behaviors that we don't want, that it can be heaped with reinforcement and then gradually faded away, but the child's still doing it, and we need to put a replacement behavior. So that's a really interesting, and I'd love to know more about that. And somebody else has written in, I used to cover my mouth when I spoke when I was a child too. It was because a child made fun of my teeth when they weren't perfectly straight or white. You wonder. And I think this is the same person who wrote it and said it happens when it's loud and chaotic, like recess and lunch, which is a very interesting, like, I'm wondering out loud, is it that the child saw somebody do this, but somehow they got it confused and they're doing this, they're thinking their voice is going to carry? Is it just that kind of a correction that needs to happen? Because I know there was a time when my son, we had done this someplace, and so he would speak like this. I don't know whether he thought he was holding a microphone or he didn't realize there needed to be a hole for the sound to go through. I don't know. It's very interesting, right? And here is a perfect example where we see why it's so important to know the function of the behavior, because it could be, is it that there's an issue with teeth, or is it just a misunderstanding of how we make sound carry? And it could be a lot of other things too. So that's really fascinating. But again, my question is, what are they doing about it at school? Are they working on it? If it's happening at recess and lunch, do you have somebody who's working on that at recess and lunch? I know we've been talking about that a lot, about the importance of being able to have somebody who's working on those goals during that time. And, we see it, there's a reluctance in the schools, yes. But I mentioned that I just had my IEP, and they're having my son evaluated for a recreational therapist. Never knew that existed. And it's somebody who specifically just comes there to be there at lunch and recess and help him to, I'm still waiting to hear back the results. I don't know what to think, but fascinating, right? Okay, so we're gonna see if you write more to us about that. There is no prompting at school for him to stop this behavior. Well, that kind of is not fun. I'm wondering if at your next IEP, because that's not going to be functional long term, right? And I guess my next question is it impeding, I would guess that it is, but I don't know, is it impeding his ability to do what he's supposed to be doing during recess, which is winding down, playing with friends, learning social communication, list goes on. Is it impeding that? Because then a great reason to have an IEP meeting, to talk about getting that to be a goal, communicating properly with the hands in the proper place, right? It could end up being, I always like to look for the silver lining. Sometimes our children come up with behaviors, and we go, where did this come from? But it actually, you might have an easier time getting a goal for your child to communicate with children on the playground, because this very clear thing that you can point to is impeding it. It should be that goals should be available for all of our kids because they're having difficulty speaking, but that's harder to point to, isn't it? Sometimes our kids' behaviors make it easier to make sure that we get what they need. I'm going to hope that that's the case. Somebody who says they really like the new hairstyle, thank you so much. I'm getting used to it. It's so much easier in the morning. And I don't have the crazy hair anymore. Which is not to say that this hair can't be crazy. It can always be crazy. We're getting ready next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday is the big Denim and Diamonds. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, who co-hosts with me on Wednesdays, is the executive director of ACT Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today. And a week from this Saturday, they're having their big star-studded event. And I have been asked, okay, this is hilarious. I have been asked to come and cover the red carpet. And, I'm so busy laughing up my sleeve about this and trying to be, having a little panic about what on earth am I going to wear? Because I'm an autism mom. I am not on the red carpet. So I'm hoping that the hair, it's just going to be, because there's not much you can do at this point, right? And that's a good thing. But anybody have any I am not a fashionista, as you see. Anybody have any fashion suggestions for me? Please feel free to participate. Okay, somebody else, this is a really interesting thing that somebody wrote in. We spend weeks trying to figure out what to do about our child taking off her clothes at night. We tried a weighted blanket, a soft sensory input blanket, reclothing her, etc. One night, she was so scared to go to bed that she would rather sleep in her pack and play in our room. She completely stopped removing her clothes, fell asleep immediately, and slept through the night. She was happy to go to bed and even told us when she was tired. She must have been so scared that she took off her clothes to self-soothe. Without being scared, there were no tears, no nudity, and no drama. She's a toddler now. Hopefully, she'll grow out of this phase. Very, very interesting, right? Because we talk all the time about our kids will engage in these behaviors, and all kids have odd, weird, bizarre things that they do, but especially with our kids on the autism spectrum, it seems like it reaches another level, right? And we have to get that mindset on of going, okay, there is a function. There's something about this behavior that it's telling us something. And I love that, you know, you've really put on your Sherlock Holmes hat here, and you're starting to notice that there are some things going on. When she was sleeping in your room in the pack and play, from what I'm gleaning here, then she didn't have this need to take her clothes off, which is very interesting, isn't it? So then I get into all these questions about, well, is it that the pack and play, you know, what are the variables, right? Is it the pack and play is a smaller thing and that it has sides to it so she doesn't feel like she's gonna fall out? Is it that it's in your room so she feels comfortable knowing that there's people there, that if she needs something, you know, what is it about being in the pack and play that makes it so she doesn't have to take her clothes off in the middle of the night? Very, very interesting. And the fact that there was no drama, that there were no tears, that she slept through the night. Obviously, there was something that, and you know, I mean, you're writing in and saying, okay, this is, you know, really interesting, but there's something going on. And I'm always cautious about this idea of growing out of things. People do grow out of some things, but it's because something changed. Either something changed in them or something changed in the environment. So it's not like it's just the magic fairy comes in and goes, oh, you don't care about this anymore, right? So I always like to be really careful about that phrase, growing out of something. Things change when we grow, and sometimes it resolves itself because of the things that changed. But I'm really curious about if you were to take the pack and play and put it in her room, and I'm not suggesting doing that because I don't want to, you know, recommend that you put your child under undue stress, but I'm curious as to what part of this has changed the behavior. And so important that when we have questions like this, and if it gets to be really challenging, that we bring other people in to take a look at the circumstances. But bless her little heart. I know that my son has issues with being in his room by himself. And it's a little bit the dark, but he says all the time, now that he has words and converse, why do I have to be the person who's alone? And you know, there's some sense in there. He says, you and Dad get each other. You know, you don't have to be in a room by yourself. He doesn't know that, you know, sometimes when I'm really tired, I would just as soon, and I snore, so there's some times that I'm sure my husband would just as soon have the bedroom to himself, right? But the truth of the matter is that it's a great soothing thing to have other people there. You know, if I'm not home or my husband isn't home, which is rare, we don't sleep as well because we're missing that other person. I fantasize about having a night where nobody bothers me, nobody, you know, snores and nobody talks to me, and I have the whole bed to myself. But the reality is, it's very comforting to have somebody else there. And I can't beat his logic. You know, how come I'm the one that has to be by myself? He had fish in his room, and while his fish were alive, before the fish debacle in which they died, I don't want to go there today, that was soothing to him. There was the noise from the fish tank, and he counted that as being with other people. You know, I'm like, well, what are the fish going to do for you? But it was soothing, like they're going to call in the night and say something, you know, a call in case of an emergency. But it was soothing to him. We got the dog. The dog doesn't want to sleep in the room with him. I can't do anything about that. But you know, he has a lava lamp, and for whatever reason, that's soothing to him when the lava lamp is on. My criteria, you know, I need to get more fish, really, is what I'm hearing myself saying. But at the heart of it, our criteria and what our kids' criteria are different. But there's something going on with your child. There's a reason why. And I'm just wondering what it is. So very, very interesting, and I thank you for sharing. I guess I didn't show that there. Now I'm showing it now. Okay. So another person wrote in and said, oh, my goodness. Okay, so somebody wrote in and said, my son, my thing just moved on me. Okay, you wrote back in and said, she can sleep through the night if we sleep in her room on the floor. Okay, well, that gives us more clues. It won't make it definitive for us, but it's sounding like she is wanting the comfort of other people, and there's something about when she's in her room that equates to, if I'm not feeling comfortable, taking the clothes off. And we may never figure out what the connections are, but I think it becomes a thing as a parent of talking about priorities. I heard Dr. Dorian Granpeche talking the other day about, you have to decide, what are we working on right now? What do we want to be working on? What's the priority? And if you're working on other things and helping your child to gain language and eye contact, and those are the priority right now, then it might be that sleeping by herself in another room isn't the priority right now. And that her sleeping in your room in the pack and play is just okay with everybody. And if the pack and play gets too small, the toddler bed or something, that you make it work. The reality is, if you went to a hotel room, you'd all be sleeping in the same room, and so I think it really comes down to what is the priority, and maybe if she gets to the point where she has more language, that she will start to understand things in a different way. Maybe she will not have the concern that she has for why she needs to be, although my son has language and he wants to be in the same room with us, so I don't think that necessarily follows. But I think it's easier to talk to him about it now. It's interesting. Very, very interesting. And then you wrote, I think we're going to get a fish tank. Okay. Let me go back to the question that I was on just a second ago, because this is scary. My son was choking on one of his little plastic bears this morning. My daughter, who is 23, had to give him the Heimlich and stick her fingers down his throat and scoop it out. Thank God she was right there, and thank God she knew what to do. He is almost 3. Possibly getting more teeth, possibly sensory issue. He is always putting his hands in his mouth, and recently he started putting things in his mouth. Any suggestions? Yeah, if you've gotten to the point where you had the Heimlich maneuver, I'm just going to jump to, and he's mouthing things and it's recent. Of course it matters why. Of course it matters why, because your intervention is going to be different based on different things. But first thing I would do is safety proof your house as much as you possibly can, and get an expert to come in and look at this behavior and try to figure out for you what it is, because you don't want to be wrong, right? It's a tough time if kids, if they start to mouth and put things in their mouth, and if they're going to get to the point where they choke, and you were already there today, that's like huge red flare. Because I'm sure that your blood pressure has got to still be high, right? I wouldn't mess around with it. I would find somebody, a BCBA, because I don't know where you are. But you can go to the card, centerforautism.com, go to the 800 number there and call the number, talk to Amy Fuentes and say, I need to find somebody that I can consult with about this. Who would you recommend in whatever area that you're in? And she'll help you to figure out, and tell her Shannon sent you. Amy's wonderful. There is also a website. It's bcab.org, I believe. I'll check that. But I think it's the BCBA licensing. They list everybody. You can click where you are. That says find a practitioner. You can click and find somebody. But don't just take any BCBA. Ask them, are you somebody who deals with mouthing and choking? Sometimes, this is how different it can be. Because if they discover that there's something, sensory-wise, why they're wanting to stick their hands and other things in. It may be that they find a replacement behavior for your child that is, something appropriate for them to chew on. At one point, my son, because he takes methyl B12 shots, and that causes a child to want to, your gums itch sometimes when you're taking that. He had a necklace that he could chew on even in class, so it prevented him from chewing his paper, chewing his hand, chewing his shirt. But if it's something that's attention driven, that you would do the complete and total opposite with that. With a 3-year-old, you don't want to mess around, right? Because they don't understand. When you have an older child, they understand what choking is. And a 3-year-old really isn't going to understand that. So get some help as soon as you can, and until you can get the help, go through all of their toys and anything that's a choking hazard. Those toys, when you go to the toy store and it says, it's got the little buster sign for babies, and they say not recommended for 0 to 3. Anything that fits that heading in your house, put it away until you can get it solved. Because how scary is that? Whew. Unbelievably scary. But I'm glad that he's okay, and what a rock star your daughter is. How amazing is that? And I don't know about you, but I tend to think that when these things happen, when you get a wake-up call, it's important to take the call, right? And change stuff. Okay, we got a bunch more things that I want to talk about, but I want to go first. It's time for us to watch the A Word, and then we're going to be joined by our mom, Tabitha, who's going to be talking to us about the stem cell procedure. And then we're going to come back to some of these things because there's some great, great questions here. So let's take a look at the A Word. Jack Riley, we're seeing that he's at a really pivotal point. 8 or 9 weeks into therapy, dad's learning, but this little boy is starting to apply the things that he's learning, and we're seeing a big shift in behavior. Take a look. This is the A Word.
This is Jack's morning routine. He just got out of bed. He's a happy guy. He's sitting with Dad, drinking some milk, watching some tunes. Hi, Jack.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How old are you, Jack?
2.
How old are you, Jack? Can you say good morning?
Cookie.
Good morning.
Cookie.
Good morning.
Cookie.
That's good. That's good. Sometimes he arranges the coins lately. It's been, used to just put them straight in the piggy bank, and now he likes to play with them and arrange them. Nice.
Good job. Say more. Oh, good. That was a good M. Nice building. Good. More. Here you go. Definitely want his scores to increase with him talking more, because he knows everything and he knows what everything is, but you're just getting him to independently ask for things, because we want to get him to man for things. At least
what are you saying? What's the word you're using?
Manned.
Manned?
Manned.
As in
like requesting.
Okay.
So he can say like the object, like he can say train, or he can say more, or he can say all done, anything to communicate with you. Because he has a language, but I don't think we give him enough opportunities to ask for things or request for things.
That makes sense. We just have to require more.
Yeah, and then after that, we'll move into more frames, such as like, I want train, I want this.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So Dad hold the train, and then have to ask Daddy.
Daddy's
Look,
here.
Daddy has the train. So Mike, have him ask you for the tracks. You can even just hold it out in front of him, and then he'll even ask you.
More?
Okay. So here we go. Yeah, good talking. Very good. I've never seen him play trains so intricately before.
He's been pretty much daily. He's asked for his train once.
Can you say, give me? Okay.
Thank you. Good talking.
There
Good
you
talking,
go.
buddy. Good asking. Good asking.
Yeah, definitely his 2 syllables are just coming along really well.
Yeah. I mean, most of them are approximations, but they're the same every time. He's a little sedate today, actually. I'm surprised. Excuse me. He gets concerned when I sneeze and cough. Daddy, are you okay? Daddy. Yeah, I'm okay.
Aww,
see that?
That's the closest it sounded.
Cheryl thought on that.
Cute, Dad.
Can you say I love you?
Yeah.
That's I love you. Same every time. It's kind of like yellow, but
yeah.
Yellow doesn't melt us like that.
Hi, we're gonna be working on some pictures. Let me get your picture first. What is it? Pants. Very good. Here you go. Here you go. He's doing a lot of imitating things, and in clinic the other day we noticed that every time he said "look at me," he'd repeat it, but in his own way, so it comes out as "baby." So every time I go "look at me," he's like "baby, baby." What is it? Pants. Hey, over here. Look at me. Look at me. No, over here. Look at me. Right here. There we go. That is a train. We'll play with it in just a second, okay? Hey, look at me. Now look at me. Right here. There are your eyes. What is it? Pants. Okay, you can go. Good job. Okay, go play. Do you want the book or the trains? Book or trains? Trains. Okay, good. Go play. Go play with your trains. Go ahead. You can go play now. Oh, you want to look at the pictures? More? More pictures? Here, you can look at the pictures. Here, I'm going to show Suzanne what you know. How about let's look at the ones that you do know. Those are the ones that you don't know. Bunny. Wow, guess you know a lot more than I thought. What's that one?
This one.
Oh, this one. Da 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 da.
Shop.
You are so smart.
Touch it.
Tiger.
Nice.
Good job. Okay, what else? What's this one?
A.
Ellie. Oh, it's getting closer.
A.
Elephant. Getting closer.
Lion.
Lion. You do know a lot of animals.
Between last week and today, Jack is able to label more cards. He's interested in identifying the images and consequently building his vocabulary. As the weeks progress in his ABA therapy, so has his skills. In 2 months, he's gone from babbling to enunciating certain words clearly. With prompting, he's able to practice appropriate speech when playing and requesting objects. Eventually, the prompting will fade and he will do it on his own. Each new skill acquired builds on the previous one.
You're interested again? Here, why don't you go over there? Go over here and you can see better.
Train.
What's that?
Train.
Ooh, you want to move it for me? Show me your train.
See, choo-choo. Yeah, move it.
There's such a shift from when he came in for intake to this point, and you can watch all of that to see how things are different, because sometimes it seems very subtle when you're just watching one episode, but when you go back and watch another episode and you go, okay, look at the difference between these two, it's really quite amazing. And you can do that on their very own YouTube channel that Emily is showing you right now on the screen. Love, love, love this documentary. I just want to point out that it's easy at this point in the game to go, well, look at this child and how well he's behaving and how, he's so interested in these cards and he's labeling them. But, on the first day, if they had given him cards, he would have done this with them. right? He wouldn't have looked at them and he wouldn't have been trying to converse. But the shift has happened in these 8 weeks because he got reinforced for looking at the cards. So he now thinks these cards are cool. He's not being reinforced in this moment, and he wants to hold them himself. You know, a lot of times when you see ABA therapy, you see the therapist holding up the card or putting it in front of the child or whatever. But you can get to the point where this is fun for him now. This is a form of play for him that he's labeling. You know, and we see typical developing toddlers being so excited to learn things. We can get our kids there too. We can and we do. So just wanted to point that out, that we're seeing the beginning of this shift, that he loves it when she comes to the door now. She's not the only therapist who works with him, of course, and we show clips sometimes from clinic, but she's the therapist that they focus on being there when she's there. So you get a sense of the through line with her. But from time to time, you'll see him working with another therapist. Really an amazing series, documentary, The A Word. I hope you'll check it out. The parents frequently, there's a Facebook page too for The A Word, and the parents frequently write in about what's happening right now. And I know they just had their first IEP meeting, and the mom was writing in, I don't know, actually, I don't know whether it was the mom. I can't tell, I'm assuming. But it could have been the dad too. They were writing in and saying, here's what happened at the IEP meeting, and asking for some advice. So you can be conversing with the parents and asking them questions and providing them with suggestions for wherever you are in this journey. That's on their Facebook, The A Word. Truly love this family. It's such a service that they're doing for all of us, allowing for cameras to be there and documenting what's happening. I think it's brilliant, and I think they're brilliant, and I think their kid is brilliant. We are going to go to break. Please don't give up on me, because I'm coming back to the things that you guys have written in, and I will say this, 2 things. That the mom who wrote in about the daughter, or excuse me, the child, because I don't know whether it's a boy or girl, it's a boy, covering his mouth when he's at recess and they're going to be meeting to talk about recess goals. One of the things, and I'm assuming again, mom, could be dad, could be anybody, they wrote in and said it's like instead of covering his ears, he covers his mouth. So they're sounding a little like a sensory component. They absolutely should be writing goals about that, because that will impede his ability to socialize and have fun and communicate. And the person who wrote in about the child choking wrote in and said, we start ABA therapy today, and I plan on discussing this with her as well, and the house toy overhaul is definitely happening today. So wonderful, and I'm so thrilled for you that you're starting ABA today. And so there you go. You don't have to make a phone call. You know that you're going to have a BCBA in your home, and to bring this up so that they can do an FBA, a functional behavior assessment, and you can get to work on figuring out how to intervene so that your child's life is not at risk. So I'm so happy for you that you're starting ABA therapy today. Air hug. That's wonderful. You can write in, I mean, it's not all going to be hearts and flowers and roses, and you can write in and tell us when it's not, but I'm so glad for you. I'm so glad for you. All right. And a whole other thing about child being taken out in IEP goals that I want to address. So we're going to come back to that. But we're going to take a break and be joined right now by an autism mom, Tabitha, whose child had the opportunity to go through the stem cell, I don't know if the transplant, the stem cell infusion. And I thought it was really important to have a parent on and to talk about that. So we're going to be back after these messages with Tabitha talking about that. Stick with us. We refer people to your website frequently on our show because you have a wealth of information, although I found out more about it in the talk that you just gave, titled 10 Americans. I hope that everybody has an opportunity at some point to see your talk, but if there was one thing that you wanted parents to, I know, consolidating on one thing that you wanted parents to know, what would it be?
No one now who's working in this field and who's serious about it doesn't realize that it's some combination of a genetic susceptibility or vulnerability or profile, simple how we're made up, as I said tonight, what you bring to the party genetically, with some insult that's caused by environmental exposure. It's not nature versus nurture. It's how they come together.
So often when I hear things about environmental, I feel like, oh, you know, how are we ever going to fix this? There's nothing we can do. But you gave great examples of when in the past we've been able to attack environmental things and turn it around.
Well, you're exactly right. We're into empowerment, not paralysis. And this information can be very paralyzing, overwhelming. There are two ways that we want them to engage on this. At the personal level, you know, go to our website, find the fruits and vegetables that are low in pesticides, the Shopper's Guide to Pesticides in Produce. There's our Dirty Dozen we publish, and a lot of people in the produce industry don't like that, but we really feel that people want a simple guide that can tell them, look, the government's constantly changing its mind about these chemicals. One day they say it's perfectly safe. The next day I read in the newspaper, we're getting rid of it because it's not safe for kids. Well, how do you deal with that? One way to deal with it is don't eat it to begin with, and there's plenty of ways you can do it. I mean, organic food, we buy as much as we can for our household and feed our little guy who's 4. But as a friend of mine once pointed out, organic is private school for food. It's great if you can find it, great if you can afford it, but not everyone always can. So, Shopper's Guide to Pesticides and Produce, our Skin Deep Guide to Personal Care Products, over 70,000 personal care products. Some of them have neurotoxic agents, carcinogenic agents, and other hazards in them. It's not a very well-regulated industry at all. Go to our site, and we go through all 70,000 that we've got on there, and we rate them based on what we think is their health hazard. Similar kind of rating system now for home cleaning products, over 2,200 of them. By doing that, I think and working with consumers, we're really seeing some market change. We have grown from 6,000 people on our email list to 1.3 million now since 2006. People are hungry for this information. You don't have to be scaling a wilderness mountain to be an environmentalist. You know, there's a wilderness in the drugstore, and we are your guides. So we'll get you through it.
Welcome back to Autism Live. That was Ken Wood from the Environmental Working Group that you just saw. An amazing speech that he did. An amazing, amazing speech. Really a remarkable man, and I encourage you to go to their website, ewg.org. A wealth of information on a lot of different subjects. Right now, we have a very special guest who's going to be joining us via phone. It's Tabitha. She is an autism mom, and we have mentioned it. We told you this. We reported on this story that the FDA has agreed that a study be done. They've given their approval to take stem cells that were saved from, you know, when you have your child. If you want to, you can save cord blood. And there are stem cells, that's what it is, and you can have it frozen. And for families that did freeze it, the FDA has approved taking and thawing some of those stem cells and injecting children on the autism spectrum with them for the purpose, as defined by the FDA, to see if it, in fact, cures autism. Now, I know that's a word that I don't usually use in conjunction with autism. It kind of makes me go, right? But that is what the word that the FDA has used. And we're going to be very interested to see the outcome of that study. This is experimental science. And before we talk about any of this, I want to make sure that we put it in those terms. We're going to wait to see what the FDA says, but it is it certainly has been possible for parents to do stem cell infusions for lots of other things, and there are some parents who have done this for autism as well. We are joined right now by Tabitha. She is a mom who recently had the opportunity to do this with her daughter Candace. So Tabitha, are you there?
I sure am. Thank you for having me.
I'm so thrilled that you're here. And I know when we talked before, you were saying to me, I just want to make sure that I let people know how important ABA is. So let's take a second to just couch this in terms, because I don't want people to run out and think, okay, well, this is the answer. Nobody is saying that this is experimental science. There is no data at this moment to say whether or not this type of an intervention is effective.
I would just say 30 years of research tells us that ABA helps all kids on the spectrum. And in many cases, with enough ABA for long enough, a kid will no longer meet the diagnostic criteria. So ABA for everybody, and this for some people.
Okay. And so important because we like to be really responsible here and talk about things through a science filter. And I want you guys to know that there is a study right now, and we are going to be really watching to see what the results of that are. But we've all had questions. I certainly have had questions about what does this look like, how intensive is it, how risky is it, and I had mentioned some of that on the air, and Tabitha contacted us and said, well, you know, I can answer some of those questions as a parent who's been through it with my child. So first of all, Tabitha, I want to know how you obviously, when you had your child, stored your cord blood.
Yes, I sure did. And that's a very simple procedure. If you are at a participating hospital, you contact a bank ahead of the birth of your child. They collect the cord blood, which is rich in stem cells. The thing that's special about stem cells is your body can easily manipulate them to become anything, and that includes neurological tissue. And so they're very helpful in many, many serious ailments, including Parkinson's and leukemia. And so it was really important to us that we save them. And our plan was, as a family, that it's very expensive, but our plan as a family was to bank them with our first child, and that way we would have them for any children who might need them in our family.
Yeah.
And we've only had one child so far, and we chose to use them with her. So.
Okay. And you know, we're all aware of this idea of cord blood because usually when we're pregnant, somebody at some point brings up the whole idea of leukemia, and we know that the cord blood has been used for children in the past when, you know, this is how science moves along at different paces, because my son will be 10 next year, and so when I was pregnant, it was a discussion about, well, would you like to, but it was really difficult and unbelievably expensive. I remember it being over $20,000 if we wanted to save the cord blood. And I really wanted to, but it was $20,000. It wasn't in, to say it wasn't in the budget is hilarious, right? That's, you know,
well, yeah.
But now, a few years later, not as bad, correct?
Right. It was about $2,000, and they let us pay in payments over the course of the pregnancy.
Right.
So we signed up about halfway through the pregnancy and then just paid every month. And it wasn't easy for us to do, but it was important to us.
But $20,000 and $2,000, huge difference, and that's just in a couple of years. And I imagine it might even be a little less expensive now, because this was a couple of years ago that you stored the blood. And of course, it was a part of the discussion because, you know, we were being told that scientifically it was showing that it was effective for leukemia and that there were other kinds of things. And to hedge your bets, you could store, and I love your idea of storing it once to cover the entire family, because if you have a child that is of both parents, then those stem cells would also be beneficial to any child, correct?
Right. It's the same way if you share a blood type with your siblings, it's the chances of you being able to give them blood are almost 100% because you have the same blood type, you're in the same family. It isn't just blood, basically, but it's just blood that's very, very powerful.
Okay. So when did you first hear, your child, first of all, was diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and after that, when did you start to think when did you hear, because I certainly wasn't hearing anything about stem cells. It wasn't on my radar. When did you first hear about that?
Well, actually, I heard about that before she was diagnosed.
Oh, interesting.
We were aware she was different around 2, and their opinions are vary, as you know, and medical professionals' awareness of the signs and symptoms vary dramatically. And what I've found is that the people who are on the front line and have children on the spectrum can tell you every single possible sign and the exact, grouping of them that means you meet diagnostic criteria, but a physician might not be able to do that. And so it was many, many months and many thousands of dollars before we had that diagnosis. But in the interim, we were aware something was different, and we investigated lots of different things that might be helpful. And one day, we got something in the mail from the company that we use to bank our cells, just letting us know of about 40 severe ailments that can be treated with cord blood. And just to inform us, and they're all very, very serious things like leukemia, things that you're not going to walk off on your own.
Right.
And I looked at that list and I saw a neurological disorder on it, Parkinson's, which affects your neurological system, and I thought, what's going on with my child? Might not have a name at this point, but it's certainly neurological. And if that's the case and they can treat Parkinson's, perhaps they can treat something else. I did some research and I found a study out of China where children on the spectrum receive stem cells, and in some cases, for a small portion of the kids, they recovered because of the stem cells. In the other cases, they did not. But that got me researching doing it in the U.S., and I found a hospital where I could do it privately and just bill my insurance.
And we should say that when we reported on the FDA, one of the reasons why there was so much interest recently that got this study approved is that there was a very well-documented case of an individual with cerebral palsy who was having difficulties with walking and talking and other things, and they were given their cord blood, and there was a dramatic change that this child was able to very quickly be able to talk and very quickly be able to walk. That it seems to me, Tabitha, that the idea behind it is that if there has been some injury to the environmental injury, and that includes a whole lot of different things, that the stem cells have the potential to correct some sort of mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it has to be environmental, and so the question has remained with this study that I understand has begun or is about to begin, that they're going to be, we're all watching with bated breath to see what this is like. But I wanted to have you on to talk about what the procedure actually is, what it looks like, and how invasive it is. So you had this done with your daughter. You had a portion of your cord blood thawed to be able to use for her, and was this an operation? Was this...
No.
Okay,
no,
tell us.
So the thing that's special about stem cells is they can pass the blood-brain barrier, and that's why they help with neurological disorders. And they are administered, they're prepped by scientists, by PhD MDs, and prepared. And obviously that has nothing to do with us as patients. And we come to the hospital, and it's like a simple IV that's administered. And because a child is receiving their own blood, there's no chance of, the body rejecting it or any other thing. So when you get an organ from somebody else or blood from somebody else, there's some risk. But there's no risk when you're getting your own blood. And so the only time that it's not helpful is if the situation is exclusively genetic. Getting your own genetic material wouldn't be helpful.
Right.
But otherwise, it could only help. It might do nothing, but it could only help. And it's just a simple IV because she was a toddler when she received it. She received it in the foot because there's a large vein there, and she slept through most of the procedure.
Right.
About 15 minutes.
So you were in and out of a hospital within one day.
Oh my goodness, the procedure took about 15 minutes. We were in the hospital for about an hour.
Okay, amazing. And I just think that that's an important thing to share. We are going to be watching very closely to see what the results are from the FDA study. And again, I want to say to people, this is experimental. And it is not something, first of all, that we can all run out and do because we didn't all store our cord blood. But nor is it something that everyone should run out and necessarily do. There are, some factors that you would want to talk to your doctor about. But I have to say, I have to go back to your daughter. That how many months ago now has it been since you've had this done?
So it was done the end of July, so I guess 3 months, full months, 3.5 maybe. And we didn't know how it was going to go, so we didn't tell other people. But, I mean, one person knew in her care team, but other people didn't know. And so when she was evaluated for her IEP by 2 different schools in the spring and again in the fall, and when they couldn't believe the difference in her, and they were very impressed. She heard that she had a giant growth in her play skills and her attention and her communication skills. That being said, you know, we didn't just do this, and I'm always hesitant to talk to parents about this because as parents who have been devastated by a diagnosis as upsetting as autism, we just beg for that one thing that's going to cure our child, and they'll take a pill and they'll be fine. And I don't want to pitch it like that,
right?
Because the truth is, everybody should be doing ABA, and some people would be helped by this procedure. And if you have the opportunity to do it, it's my opinion that you should find more information out to see if it's right for your family, because it's just an IV, but you should always do ABA.
Yeah, because and I know you and I had a conversation about this, and you pointed out to me that even if the best case scenario happens for your child, and you have the cord blood stored, and you can do that, and it has a positive impact on your child, it is going to restore your child's ability to be able to do things, but they're still going to need to learn how to do them. It's not going to suddenly make it so that your child knows how to do all the skills that they missed.
Right. It's not a sci-fi movie where you get a shot and then you're a genius.
Right. It isn't that. But it has the potential. That's what the study is seeing, has the potential to remove some of the obstacles that were preventing that stuff, but you're still going to have to go back and learn the things. I think it's absolutely amazing, and I'm thrilled to hear that your daughter is doing so well, that, and you have said this to me before, it's progress. We're not sure how much of it is the ABA and how much of it is the procedure that we did, but it's progress, and progress is fabulous. And I'm thrilled for you that you followed your heart and had the cord blood, and that you followed your heart and your head and did ABA too. And I think that you're a remarkable parent getting a lot done. And I know. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing. Many people live in states where they have the option to donate their cord blood if they're not going to bank it.
Yeah.
And those cells can then be used by other families who may need them for many serious ailments, including neurological disorders. So if you live in a state like that, please find out if the hospital where you're having your baby allows you to donate it. Because what I think, as all of us would like to see, there being enough stem cells that if, God forbid, you're in a car accident or you get cancer or whatever it may be, that you can go to the hospital and get that kind of blood just like any other kind.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to bank it, either because you banked it with a previous child or because you choose not to, then please donate it if you can.
Absolutely. And as research unveils and we see that there are potential new uses for it, it could be that in a few years' time, if we've banked enough of it, there could be a lot of uses for it. We're going to keep our ears and eyes listening to hear what comes of this study. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting proposal. And it may be that down the road, if it's shown to be scientifically proven to be effective, that there is a way of infusing a child with somebody else's stem cells. That's sci-fi to me, but we'll look forward to hearing what happens along the way. And again, Tabitha, I want to thank you, and keep us posted on how your child is doing, okay?
Okay, I will do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
a really interesting question, right? I mean, you know, it's science and it raises questions. I will tell you that it was an interesting moment in our household because after hearing about all this, and we didn't store cord blood, and I'm having, you know, some like, about that, right? But I brought it up to my son. We had a family discussion about it, and I said, I'm just interested, you know, they're going to do the study, and, you know, if it shows, you know, and of course, they're very careful to say that it would only help environmental things, not genetic things, and I have no idea how my son's autism, I believe firmly that there are genetic and environmental components, right? So I have no idea whether it would be useful to him or not. But I, you know, said to him, if it were something, would it be of any interest to you? And my son looked at me and said, I don't have autism. I don't have autism anymore. Which has led to many more conversations in our household. Very interesting, you know, it was one of those things where mom went, oh, really? And what are you basing that on? And we had quite the interesting conversation. But how wonderful is my life that I could have that conversation with my son and that's what he said to me. And he had some reasons why he felt that he didn't. We talked about that. But, you know, and he, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that, but it was an interesting conversation. In any case, so wonderful to have Tabitha give us, because to me, it sounded like this big, foreign, far away, scary thing, and I'm even more interested after hearing her description of what it was like and how her daughter is doing. But we will keep you posted on the science. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about social skills, gestures, and gestures to regulate others, but we have another question here that I especially want to get to, so stick with us.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son, Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And Wilson, I have to say, you know, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We just saw the Home Depot clip, and I want to remind you that it's not this weekend, but the following weekend will be their November craft on that Saturday morning. It's such a great thing. It's such a wonderful thing. If you can get there, you know, they do it in the morning. It's a great thing to do on a Saturday morning. You don't have to stay long if you don't want to. There are some times when we just pick up the craft and go, and they've been very good about that. Sometimes you'll get one of those employees who really wants your child to do it there, and you can just say, hey, you know, whatever you want to say. I mean, there have been times when he wanted to do the craft, but I was afraid he was contagious, that he had a cold, and I've, you know, been able to pull up, and he's been in the back seat, and I've said, he's there, he's got a cold, but he really wants to do this, and they very happily hand it over. It's not like you have to say, look, we're dealing with autism here, and today, sensory-wise, they, say whatever you have to say. And they're very good about it. They get it. But you don't have to say the A word if you don't want to. But in any case, it's a great thing. And if your child's up to it, it's a great place to work on sensory issues and to work on socialization issues, and it's free. And you're working on hand and finger skills and motor skills and hand-eye coordination. It's a lovely free thing that Home Depot does. You have to love that. Okay, I said that I wanted to, that we had a comment here that I wanted to cover, and thanks for hanging with me. I'm going to show this to you guys right now. Hi, Shannon. Does Jem ever go to a resource room for help with any of his IEP goals? I feel frustrated sometimes because my son's greatest need is social skills over academics. He also has a full-time aide to help him in the classroom with an awesome, I'm going too far, with an awesome teacher. When he goes to the resource room, he either works one-on-one with a teacher or works independently. Therefore, he's missing social skills lessons with peers during math and reading times in the resource room. So I just wanted to know how full inclusion works for Jem and why you wanted that. Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm a big fan of inclusion, and I know everybody isn't. And each child is different, right? And each child needs different things. So I think it's really important to put that little disclaimer on it. And that maybe the reason why I'm such a big fan of inclusion is because that's what's right for my child. So let's make sure that we put that at the forefront here. But having said that, and also having said that, I think that a parent's gut, I always say the gut check, do the gut check. What's right for you? You're going to deal with a lot of experts. We all do. And I love experts, and I recommend experts all the time here on the show because there's some things that we need to have some help and support with, right? And I'm a big fan of, I'm a former teacher, and I think there's a lot of good teachers that are out there. But let's face it, that where teaching is concerned, there is very little training that has been made available for teachers, and there are fewer teachers who have had the opportunity to participate in that training, which means that where your child is concerned and where autism is concerned, likelihood is that you are more knowledgeable than your teacher is. Very likely. And I also say this is true for some of our pediatricians, right? I have a fabulous pediatrician who says to me, I'm going to ask you questions because there are some parts of this that you know more than I do. And I love that. I love that about my pediatrician. He doesn't automatically say to me, look, I know what needs to be done, and I'm an expert in autism when he's not. So I always want to remind myself and remind all of us, we need to have that filter on constantly. How much does this person know about my child, about what my child individual needs are, and how much does this person actually know about autism who is potentially deciding which room my child is in when? Because they're going to act like they know, because that's their job, but maybe they don't. So having said that, what I'm hearing from you is that it seems as though your gut is saying, and you're very clear about the fact that social skills are more of a priority than the academics. And that's a really important thing to know. And everybody's priorities get to be what they want to be. At my IEP meeting last week, they brought in, we have declined adaptive physical education last year and this year because at our school, the only time that it can be offered is during prime instruction right now. And they brought in a new APE person because there's a formality of the fact that we have to be offered it. And that we have had to, because of my priorities, say, well, if you can't do it during this time, then we're not doing it. And so this gentleman came in, and I think he had heard that we were just parents who didn't want APE, adaptive physical education, which isn't the truth. If they could offer it a time where it didn't impede on my son's academic and social time, I would be all about it. But he wants to do it at 9:30 in the morning. I can't even drop off a lunch box at that time because they say it's core curriculum time. And so I was very blunt with him and said, here are the priorities for us: academics, social, and after that, everything else. And I realize that everything else sometimes can help with academic and social. I get that, but you're not doing it during prime academic time. Those are my priorities: academic, then social, and then everything else. But if your priorities are social and then academic because that's what your child's needs are, let your IEP team know that. Let them know that that's where your priorities are, and that that's the filter that you're coming through. And when you have the opportunity to stick academics and social together, because that's really what the classroom is all about, is having those two elements together. We're doing academics in a social setting. Then I just feel like we're moving on all pistons then, and that's why I'm all about inclusion. I also am about inclusion because, as I said, for my individual child, before we started ABA, we had some early intervention that was offered through our state. We would go and they had a gymnasium and the kids would do some things in the gym and then they would go into the music program. And that was like the classroom setting, getting them warmed up to go to nursery school. And the kids would sit in little chairs in this semicircle and they would sing songs and do signs. And these were all kids who were facing different challenges and different the amount that they were impacted was different, right? And my child would just sit there and was being tortured. They put him in a therapy chair, so he was strapped into a 5-point harness. He had a weighted blanket. He had the weighted vest on, screaming his head off because he wanted to get out of the room. And he was sitting, well, he was supposed to be sitting next to, he would flip the chair and be upside down. Oh, it was terrible. With kids who were engaging in stereotypy, you know, one kid who was waving, and there was a lot of stuff going on in the room, and he just would scream. And during spring break, because we didn't start ABA until the summer, during spring break, and my husband and I would take turns going, and we would cry through the whole thing. He'd be sitting behind the chairs with all the other parents, and it was just torture. It was just torture. So it gets to be spring break, and now some of the older siblings from some of the other kids have come with the kids to the classroom. And one of the boys who was in class with my son had a brother who was 6 years old and typically developing. And he came in and sat down next to my son. And my son looked at him and just made this like incredible eye contact with him. And I just was fascinated by it. Like, what is fascinating about this kid to my son? And my son looked at him, and the boy sat down in the chair and was just sitting there with his arms in his hands in his lap. And my son went over and without us strapping him into the chair, sat down next to him. It just totally mimicked his behavior. Sat down next to him, and then they started to sing. And my son wasn't screaming, but he wasn't watching the teacher. He was watching the other kid. And anything that kid did, my son did. It was the one and only time that he was in that classroom that was productive. The one and only time. Because he saw what this behavior looked like on somebody who wasn't facing challenges. And he was fascinated and wanted to match his behavior. And in that moment, I realized, oh my goodness, in my, trepidation of all these other things, his life is filled with kids who have issues. And not just because they're on the autism spectrum, but because they're at an age where they're yelling and they're screaming and there's a lot of motion, and he's not able to sort through that. But by the time we get to 6, and this child is behaving in a certain way, it isn't the big sensory nightmare for him. And all I could envision, because right at that time the school was saying, here's the classroom that we want to put him in, and I went in and looked at that classroom, and I couldn't have been in that classroom for more than an hour without needing a break. Lots of, kids making noises, and one kid who was wearing a helmet that was hitting their head against the wall. And I just envisioned that if my child was in that classroom, that's all he was ever going to do was deal with the sensory issues of the other things going on in the room. So it became really important to me in that moment to get him in a room where there were all kinds of things happening, and that he would have the opportunity to see the behavior that somebody to model from the behavior we were trying to get to. That was my individual child, but that's why it was so super duper important to me. And and so we lobbied for that. We were told we couldn't have that he wasn't productive in the classroom, that the other kids weren't going to learn because, and they wouldn't even let us try it. But instead, here's the good news. Instead, we kept him home for a year and did 40-hour program of ABA therapy, and he only went to do one-on-one speech. And in that year, everything changed. Everything changed. And so by the next year, somebody who had never seen him before recommended that he be fully included at a preschool with full inclusion. And we never looked back. But I continue. Jem never goes to a resource room. At our particular school site, they don't ever advocate taking a child out of and going to resource unless they are not able to academically keep up. And we worked day and night to make sure that he stayed at least academically with the class. Sometimes it means we have to do extra work at home and do it in a different way. And especially in the beginning with kindergarten, that was really the case. We were at grade level when we started kindergarten by a hair. Just by a hair. And there were things that we talked with the kindergarten teacher, who was a saint, and she would say, here's what's coming up. We're working on coins. And we had the therapist working on it. Mom and dad worked on it. We just kept it so that he could stay at pace with the class, because I didn't want him to have to go out of the classroom. If your child is keeping pace with the classroom, I can't see why there's any reason to justify going out of the room, especially if you've got a one-on-one aide. There's no reason. And I would lobby hard, if that's the situation that you're in, to say, show me why we're doing this, and show me some evidence-based of how we're going to get there doing this, because I don't think there is any evidence of that anywhere. There's no study that's going to demonstrate that for them. So they're going to go, ooh, and go with your gut. Now, if you think that your child needs academic support in a quieter setting, one-on-one with people who can explain things for them, and that you don't have the means to do that at home, then that's a great reason to go out for a pull-out to a resource room. But that's, in my opinion, as a parent and as a former teacher, the only reason why that would be productive. And if your child is doing independent work in resource, my question is it because they're unable sensory-wise to do that in the classroom? What's the reason for that? Why are they doing that? Ask questions. Ask questions and lobby for what you think in your gut is right in this circumstance, because I'm going to guess that you are right. Whatever that is. It won't necessarily be what's right for my kid, but your gut will tell you what's right for your kid, and that's more important than anything else. You can't buy that. Okay, we're going to take a quick little break and come back to end the week with gestures to regulate social interaction. Stick with us.
Just go like this. Can you see me? Puedes mirarme aquí? Okay. Hi, I'm Rebecca Ishida. Say hi, Ethan.
Hi.
My son was diagnosed with autism in November 2004. With Ethan, almost immediately, we noticed things that were troublesome, that he just didn't sleep. He would vomit in the crib. There were a lot of sensory issues.
Then he'd have like 20 of the trains lined up, and if you came in and took one train out, just meltdown completely.
Guttural instinct is to think that there's nothing wrong. Who wants to look at their child and go, there's something wrong with that child? You don't. You always want to see the best in your child.
Will my kid be able to go to school? Will he interact with his peers? Will he be able to have a healthy relationship? Will he get married? I really thought that autism was like a death sentence. A lot of hope was given to me through CARD. This was my third agency, and the best agency we had. And there was no way in the world I was going to give up CARD because of the gains I saw Ethan was having.
Ah, you did it!
And I remember when Doreen saw us for the evaluation, she says, but by the time he's 6, he will be recovered. And that's exactly what happened.
I'll fix that.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I wanted to leave this week with a social skills lesson that we could do. And it's gestures to regulate social interaction. You know, it's so important, and we talk about verbal behavior. But verbal behavior is a lot more than just being vocal, right? You know, as a parent, that there are times when you can look at a child, you just give them a look, and they get a message. You haven't said anything, you didn't point, you didn't do anything, right? There's a whole lot of cases happen outwards, and we want to be able to help our children to understand both how to convey meaning with gestures and how to receive it, so that if you go to the classroom and the teacher is lecturing and you walk into the classroom, that your child doesn't immediately go, "Mom, hi," right? That your child might wave to you and you wave back to them, and the child starts to get up and you go, "Mm-mm," and you point for them to sit back down, and they understand and you can communicate in this way. Okay, that's gestures to regulate social interaction. So we're teaching them to respond to gestures in a social setting. We're teaching them to use gestures in a social setting. And more importantly, or as important, we're teaching them to chain together a series of gestures in order to communicate without words, right? You know, I always want to learn, you know, when you watch a show and there's guys and women in a SWAT team, or, you know, and they're doing that whole, there's a gesture about, you know, I'm going to do this and you do this, and they've got those hand signals. I always want to know what those mean. But there's a whole lot of things that we do in life that aren't those hand signals that we have an understanding of. It's a language, and it's a language that we need for our children both to understand and to be able to do. So we can start this in lots of different ways, but like a lot of things, we're going to take it outside of itself first. There's a lot of prerequisites for this lesson. By the way, this lesson and a whole series of lessons on gesturing and understanding gestures and being able to put a series of gestures together to interact socially, they're available on Skills. You can find them at www.skillsglobal.com. You know I love Skills. Okay, so here's an example of a way that we can start. This is just like the first little increment. And again, there's prerequisites. A child has to have some receptive language, and they have to have some gestures already on board for this to work. So the parent teacher says, if you were in the library, so we're giving a context, if you were in the library and wanted to tell a friend to come and sit by you without using any words, what would you do? So we're taking it outside and playing what if for a moment, and the child then pretends to wave to gain a person's attention, does a backward wave towards himself or herself, and then pats the chair or the ground next to him or her. Now, again, if the child isn't able to do all that, because we're teaching this and probably they don't know how to do this to begin with, we can prompt them through the different parts. And because already we're starting on one that's a 3-step, maybe we start with, how would you get somebody to come to you, or how would you acknowledge? We start with a gesture of, I'm saying hi to you, and if you want somebody to come to you, that you do this, and if you want somebody to sit next to you, and we can take each little bit of that, right? So this is a little bit more advanced lesson. It has a lot of prerequisites, as I said to it, but it's a great thing to be, don't leave this kind of lesson out, because we see that a lot of times kids on the spectrum will not get or participate in this kind of behavior. Okay. Some important things to remember when you're teaching gestures to regulate social interaction. Make sure that you teach the gestures within a context, like saying, okay, we're at the library, so we have to be quiet, right? So that we're working on social situations and social rules at the same time. Or we're in the bank. Or how about when we're on the playground and it's so loud that somebody can't hear, how could you gesture to put it in a context? Teach the meaning of the gesture first, so that if the child doesn't understand you know, what this means, we need to make sure that they know that first. And we have to teach and use a wide variety of gestures with your child, because, you know, some kids will ask the person to come here like this. Some people go like this. Some people go like this. We were someplace the other day, and there was a baby, and the baby, they had asked the baby to wave goodbye to us, and she went like this. And my son said, "What is she doing?" And I thought, oh, no, we haven't taught how babies do. This is how a baby says goodbye, like milking a cow. He said, what is she doing? And we'd left that out. And so we needed to put that in there. So make sure you teach a wide variety of gestures so that the child can understand them, receive them, and can use them. All right, we're about out of time here. So I want to remind all of you, as this show ends, the conversation is endless, right? Lots of ways to participate. Emily's going to cycle through very quickly some of the ways that you can get in contact with us over the weekend, but really at any point. Especially through Facebook, and I check in once or twice over the weekend, because I'm compulsive, on Facebook to see what's up. So feel free to comment. I promised that we were going to talk about Conan. So here's the quick thing that happened with Conan. We showed the clip of Conan on the show, and then it went to YouTube, and we got a slap on the hand for it. They said we didn't have permission for it, but we did have permission for it. So that's why last Thursday's and Friday's show weren't on YouTube. There was a delay of getting yesterday's up. We took the time. We said we weren't going to, but we took the time to contact the Conan people. And can I tell you how lovely and gracious and wonderful they were, and said, oh my goodness, of course we want to help you to sort this out. And they sorted it out for us very quickly. So you will see that we're not having any issues. The YouTube channels will be back up. Those 2 episodes are on Blip. I don't know if we're going to have time to put them back up on YouTube, but I just wanted you guys to know that the Conan people were fabulous. As soon as we, because I thought, oh, we're going to be able to get through to them, and they're big, but they were. So not only did Conan make himself a bright orange, let's face it, that's what he was, and do cornrows to support our kids, but when us using him created a problem for us, his people took care of it like that. So you got to love the Conan people. I want to urge you to go on YouTube today on Conan's site to see him with the cornrows, to see what he did for our kids. Just have to love that man. Conan hug. And again, we're going to be back next week. We've got so many exciting things to cover for you next week. So thrilled. That will start at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time next week. And I think we're having clock change this week, so make sure that you're up on what the time change is where you are. But we'll be back live then with lots of interesting interaction. We hope you'll add to the conversation. But until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.